Wonderful. So this is what I wanted to talk about today. It's great to see so many friends in the attendee list, and hopefully some new friends that we can meet. I'm going to be talking quite a bit about systems and systems change, and the very last thing I was going to say about Sean is as we look more and more into systems, it's people like Sean that are connectors within systems that bring people together and open up new possibilities of change that are really critical for systems change. And so, just one last time, thank you, Sean, for connecting us all.
Oh,
But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about where we've been, what we've already won, where are we at, and then what's coming up, and what do we need to do moving forward. We are in a very special movement right now that has moved forward faster than anybody would have ever expected or thought possible. And it's a great time to take stock of it and look at what we've learned and where do we need to go from here. Because the truth is, even 10 short years ago, nobody was talking about this. This is a picture from President Obama's 2014 State of the Union address, where he talked about gas being a necessary bridge fuel and the way that America is going to become energy independent, and calling for the creation of sustainable hydraulic fracturing zones across the United States. This is not to denigrate President Obama, but it's just to say how much the conversation's changed. Before this movement, we had solar, we had efficiency, and we had a clear political consensus that gas was just here to stay. 5 short years later, we banned gas in new construction in Berkeley, and within 2 years, in 90 cities all over California, and now spreading to the entire West Coast of North America, have said no gas in new construction. The pace of change that's happened and what we've switched on is unprecedented in history from an energy transition perspective. Um, we are seeing the signs of a sticky transition, one that, in spite of outside forces of culture, of politics, of economic downturns, we still continue to see heat pumps outselling furnaces across the United States, coming up on 5 straight years of that activity, even in times of high inflation, even in times of low consumer confidence. We still see it. The first quarter of this year, heat pumps outsold furnaces by 32% across the United States, according to data from AHRI, the Trade Association of the Manufacturers. And so we continue to see the signs that this is a sticky transition that we've all started together. And we're starting to finally see it approach air conditioners. This is a chart that shows the sale of air conditioners in the dark green line and heat pumps in the blue line across the United States over the past 5 years. And you can see that, it's seasonal. Obviously, a lot of air conditioners sold in the summer, not a lot sold in the winter. And we've approached it. We've come close in the past, but we've never until September of last year had a month in America where heat pumps outsold air conditioners. We've now had 3 months where heat pumps have outsold air conditioners. They are starting to be the colder months. September's not cold, but some of these more recent ones are cold. It'll be fascinating to see as we come into the summer. But people thought this was going to take another 10, 15 years. And even the greatest skeptics in our community are just blown away that we're starting to outsell air conditioners as well. Um, and then in new construction, this is Census Bureau data talking about over the last 25 years, what is the main fuel source for heating for new homes that are being built across the United States. And you can see gas in the green line and electricity in the blue line. And again, you can see some pretty clear trends here of where we're moving right on our movement starting in 2016, 2017, and really taking off in the late teens, early aughts, or the early 2020s. And you can see that we are on a heavy ramp towards last year or 2024. Over 60% of all new homes built in America are using electricity for heat, and it's going to be even more in 2025, 2026, and continue. And so clearly, there's a big change underway over a very short amount of time as a result of all of our efforts. You would have thought with the change in politics, with the election of Trump and the retrenchment of Democrats, that we would see a big pullback on legislation around building decarbonization. We actually didn't. We saw the same amount of bills introduced in state legislatures across the United States on building decarbonization as were introduced in 2024. And we actually saw a higher percentage of them passing and in a greater number of states actually passing that legislation. And so while much of the not everything is there to be celebrated, we definitely took some hard losses. We're still seeing the political appetite to continue down this path. Even in times where affordability has really become the dominant conversation piece. And one of our big challenges right now in our movement is how do we make it very clear that heat pumps, that building electrification are the affordability solution, not just for the individual family or the building owner or occupants, but also for our long-term grid affordability as well. Um, we're starting to see the next generation of codes come about as well. This is a map that shows those cities in California that have adopted air conditioning to heat pump regulations or AC to HP, AC to heat pump regulations, which say that when an air conditioning system, a central air conditioning system breaks within that community, you are going to have to replace it with a heat pump. There's very marginal differences between the difference of a central AC system to a heat pump from a cost perspective. Energy Commission has just come out with new research that's showing this is very clear, particularly for hot areas of our state. The economics are very clear and beneficial for places like the Central Valley, Inland Empire, and other really hot areas where the higher efficiency air conditioner makes up for any additional costs that come in potentially as a result of our low natural gas costs. And so we're starting to see the very first cities in the United States that started this movement by saying no more gas in new construction, saying now when you replace your air conditioner, you're going to have to replace it with a heat pump, and that's going to decarbonize 90 to 95% of the heating in those buildings as well. Um, and we're winning in the courts. The loss in Berkeley was in the Ninth Circuit was terrible. We've won practically every other place. And I say practically just because we're still waiting on a few others. We got an incredibly bad um, panel in the Ninth Circuit. We had two Trump appointees and a Reagan appointee. And then we had a series of absences when it went to the full Ninth Circuit and a very divided Ninth Circuit. Ever since then, we've been winning, winning, winning every time we go to court and defending these laws that are protecting our communities and protecting our future. And we're not just seeing it on the legislative side, we're seeing it on the regulatory side. States have to come to grip, particularly states that have recognized within their laws the importance of fighting climate change and setting binding targets for greenhouse gas emissions. They have to come to terms with how do you manage the wind down of a gas system when you live within a system that is looking at getting towards carbon neutrality within 25 more years, but you're putting pipe in the ground for the next 70 years. And so highlighted on here on this map are states that have opened future of gas proceedings, 14 states plus the District of Columbia, where the regulatory bodies, the Public Utilities Commissions, the Public Service Commissions have said, we are going to develop a framework for how we look at our gas system and how we make a plan for the managed wind down of our gas system in order to, yes, protect the climate, but also protect communities and protect ratepayers on this path as well. And it's not just future of gas proceedings. I mean, this is just a collection of our staff's review of proceedings around the United States currently happening at public utilities commissions that are focused on building decarbonization and winding down the gas system. Everything from clean heat standards to heat pump rates to how do you actually look at economically refusing gas pipeline projects that come forward to them. We are seeing across the United States a whole series of regulatory proceedings that are starting to build the political infrastructure and the policy infrastructure we're going to need to be able to accelerate the wind down of the gas system and the wind up of electrification. Um, so there's a lot to celebrate in a very short amount of time. This is happening far faster than anybody would have ever predicted. But we're coming at a really wonderful time to take assessment of where we're at and what we need to do to be able to not just continue the momentum we built, but how do you accelerate it? Because any of us that are in this for climate reasons, any of us that are in this in order to protect frontline communities from the impacts of climate change, know that as much progress as we're not making it fast enough. And so I'm spending a lot of time right now thinking about system change acceleration, and how do we make this go a lot faster. And when you do work like that, you inevitably run across Donella Meadows, one of the greatest systems change thinkers of the 20th century. And in 1999, she released a really wonderful piece of work that talked about what are the key leverage points when you're trying to change a system, an economic system, an ecological system, an energy system. What are the key leverage points within that system? And she laid them out, 12 different leverage points where that work in any of those systems I mentioned or any other systems where you look at it and you can choose where to intervene. And there are places that are going to be stronger to intervene, and there's going to be places that are weaker to intervene. And so some of these I just put up here, things like subsidies. Like, yes, you need subsidies in order to get attention and to be able to get people initially to start buying. But subsidies are actually one of the weakest leverage points in changing off of our gas system. Um, yes, we want standards and regulations, but the standards and regulations actually have to lead to a fundamental change about not putting any more new gas in the ground or new gas into buildings or stopping putting technology into buildings that rely on gas. And so, what we need to be focusing on more is those leverage points on the right. How do you fundamentally change the rules of the system, like banning gas in new construction, like AC to heat pump, like clean heat standards that actually set a declining standard for gas from emissions from gas utilities? How do you change the actual goals of the system? Because right now, the goals of the system are to make money for utilities. It's not to protect communities. It's not to fight climate change. It's a rate of return for utilities. And hey, that's not to demonize utilities. That's just a system that we built, that we and our political leaders that we elect have chosen to build. And we need to change the goals of that system. But one of the strongest is really changing the paradigm within which the system rests. And I'll harken back to that third slide where the paradigm that President Obama talked about was gas is inevitable. Gas is needed for our independence. What we need to change fundamentally is the paradigm around our relationship with gas and how gas actually operates within our communities, and that gas is no longer a part of us, but gas is in a managed wind down to protect us environmentally and to protect us economically. Many of the things that we celebrate, not all, but many of those things I celebrated in all those first slides have been operating in the lower leverage parts of Donella Meadows' overall framework. And our mission over the next few years and our part of this movement is how do we move farther to the right? How do we start to move more and more towards those policies, information flows, and paradigm shifts that are necessary so that people would never even think to pass laws to encourage gas. We've so much changed the paradigm around people's relationship with gas that everything is in line with where we want to be going rather than slowing us down or actually taking us backwards. And so everything we've done has been very necessary for the first stage of this movement. But now we need to accelerate it, and we have to be focusing on the more impactful leverage points. And we see that, but also the gas utilities see that. This is a chart that shows the spending on the gas distribution system across the United States from 1990 to 2023. And you can see that for about 2 decades, we had really stable or even a low and negative investment into the gas system. And then right around 2010, with the explosion in San Bruno, California, and new guidance from the federal government, we had a ramp up of investment in the gas distribution system. Now what's happening is the gas utilities are seeing the paradigm shift underway, and they are racing as fast as they can to get as much steel in the ground as they can to get that return on investment before regulations, climate regulations catch up to them, and the paradigm around climate and affordability catch up to them. Because the reality is that, yes, we have seen electricity prices go up in a few different areas of the country. every single area in the country has seen natural gas prices go up. And it's one of the fastest growing drivers of inflation in the United States is the increased cost of gas across the United States. The gas utilities see it coming and they're trying to get as much money in the ground as they can before all of this catches up to them. Because the reality is that rules without paradigms are really fragile and weak. I have four governors up here who are all going to be, at least three of them running for president in 2028, probably not Kathy Hochul, who all rolled back climate rules over the last 2 years. Some inspirational leaders, some less than inspirational leaders, but Democratic governors and some of our climate leadership states rolling it back because we had not changed the paradigm fully. We see waves of the paradigm change happening and ups and downs and roller coasters. A paradigm has fully changed when even in changing economic times and political times, that paradigm doesn't change. And so when you have governors like these on the screen, Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, Wes Moore in Maryland, Kathy rolling back climate rules, it shows you that we still have work to do on changing that paradigm. And this happening because of this really unique moment that we're in. Um, we are in what Dr. Emily Grubert of Notre Dame calls the mid transition. We're at a time when the fossil fuel system and the clean energy system are both operating at the same time and both undermining each other's economics and causing maladaptions for all of us as we seek to bring about this transition. Because the reality is, we become so dependent on the fossil fuel system that for a few years we're going to need to rely on it as we transition, but we can't rely on it and make investments in it that prevent that transition from happening as quickly as we need it to happen. And so we find ourselves in this really unique moment that she identified as a mid-transition, and it's a time that requires really unique planning to this moment. There are things that we will do in the mid-transition moment that you would never do in the past, and we would definitely never do in a paradigm change, all-electric future, but are necessary right now and unique to this moment so that we can help the transition along, particularly to protect people and protect vulnerable communities in this transition. Because what we're facing and what Dr. Emily Grubert talks about, not just for the natural gas system, but for many systems, is that we are starting to see a wildly unmanaged decline of the gas system. We are starting to see the reduction of gas use for buildings across the United States. And what we need to warn against is a really regressive collapse of the system that hurts a lot of communities, that leaves people without the ability to get off the gas system with high costs, and leads to large scale political bailouts of the gas system when it becomes politically unpalatable to watch that collapse. What we need to do instead is planning right now, setting in place the plans to protect vulnerable communities, protect ratepayers by not approving billions of dollars of new investment into the gas system, and actually have a plan for the managed wind down of the gas system. Um, we are right here. And it's very, for those of us that have been in the movement for a quarter of the century, like Sean and I and others on this screen, and those that are older, I sense a real desire to like put a bow on this and say like we've done it. Like let's like it's on the path is set, and all we need to do is let it go. And I can say that this moment requires even more from us, but also something different than what the last 10 years. The creation of this movement is going to be different than the next 10 years of this movement. And what we do in this next 10 years is going to be the hinge that decides whether or not we're able to accelerate off of the progress that we've already built, or whether we stall here and we wait for climate change to get so bad for the political will to come back. Because as I've said, this happened faster than anybody expected. All of us here in this conference, like we weren't supposed to be the the mid-transition generation. We were supposed to be the early ones. We were supposed to be the ones that started this, and then we handed it off after 2 decades to the mid-transition generation. But now we firmly find ourselves directly in this moment as the critical generation to make sure that as we've taken this from nothing in 2014, 2015, 2016 into the actual decline of the gas system, it's now incumbent upon us to be able to reflect and to be able to redirect in order so that we can continue this. And so I look around at the people on the screen and I just think of the thousands and thousands of all electric homes that have been built, all the heat pumps that have been installed, and all the people that have benefited from the work of the people here in this conference. And I'm incredibly inspired that we have the right team that's going to be necessary to be able to help us meet our goals. Here's what we're seeing, and here's what we're really focusing on at the Building Decarbonization. The next 5 years is really about building the underlying rule set to be able to change the paradigm and how people think about gas, and then the rules around gas in all electric buildings. That will open up a surge of political will as well as investment into bringing about the level of change that we need to see in both new construction and existing buildings in the next decade. That next decade is critical, and we need to be able to set ourselves up so that the 2030s are the 2030s that really changed the building stock and the stock of appliances across the United States and gets us so that we can actually see in 20 years the wind down of gas systems across the United States. Um, no one's ever done this. No one has actually looked at an energy system that is as insipid as a gas system in America and actually changed it. And no one could imagine how quickly it's actually happening. And because of that, there's no playbook for this. Collectively, we're right now writing that playbook, not only for each other through conferences and convenings like this, but for that next generation, that critical generation of the 2030s and the 2040s that are going to finish this job. And so that's why conferences like this are so important, so that we can share, so that we can learn, so that we can be re-inspired by each other, so that clean, healthy buildings for all by 2045 is actually possible, preferably sooner. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody at this conference, for all the work that you do in your communities and around the world to bring about this possible future. And I'm so honored to be welcomed back and to talk to you all and share what's happening and what we see moving forward. And I look forward to spending some time with you over the next 2 days.